Welcome to you both. I've got to say, James, I tell you, I watched everything today from start to finish, and I thought to myself, Peter, where do you start tonight? I mean, this is another day of chaos on another week of chaos, that rushed attempt with this legislation. And the opposition, some media outlets are saying that they're refusing to pass the laws. They're not. They want a proper inquiry. No. Why wouldn't they? I mean, it's been a calamity of failures ever since the government touched this issue. And they want some scrutiny on the legislation. They got confirmation last night in that hearing. You heard it there in those comments from officials. They don't regard this as urgent in relation to that High Court decision. So they say it's not urgent. It's confirmed it's not urgent. Well, then let's have a proper inquiry. But give me your take.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, I think the thing that's happened here, Peta, is that Labor, having been caught on the back foot with the legislation over NZYQ and then trying to blame the coalition for playing politics, has now decided to go in the other direction, but they've been caught out on this. You know, they thought what they would do is say, oh, this is really urgent, this is really important, and then, you know, force it through in the last couple of days of Parliament. As far as I know, they actually had this legislation ready to go on Friday, and yesterday the coalition got a call at 7:30 in the morning saying, hey, have a look at this. So you can see what this is all about. But it's all blown up spectacularly in their face. And it's a huge embarrassment, Peter, for the government to have the coalition, the team up with the Greens and the crossbenchers in the Senate to say, hang on. There are processes here. We need to know what this is all about, what it's going to achieve, what it's meant to solve. And there are so many questions that are left unanswered about this legislation, not the least of which is what happens to one of these detainees after they serve the term of this sentence.
You used the word embarrassment there, James, and I have to say, looking at I'd have to regard it as some of the most inept media management I've seen from Clare O'Neil's office. I've watched that last night and again today. Here's a little bit for people at home to follow what's happened.
As we're identifying gaps in our system, we are moving as quickly as we can to fill those gaps.
Our government's really committed to transparency. I'm so sorry, I've got to go to a meeting.
This is major legislation. This is major legislation, and you're not taking questions on it.
What's your response?
It's very difficult for the coalition to support such a rushed passage of this legislation.
Everyone ready to go? Cameras all good? Yes. Okay, instead of doing what's in the national interest, okay? Yep, we've got to go. We've got to wrap up. Thanks.
Why are you avoiding questions because why are you hiding scrutiny?
Carolyn, you've been in the media a lot longer than me. I've been around that building probably a lot longer than you. I mean, when you start having the Parliament building look like the scenes out the front of a criminal court, you know, cameras chasing ministers down corridors, as we've seen in the last 48 hours, it's a shocking look. And I'd say there as a staffer, that minister is on death row.
Look, Peter, I have been in the media a long time. A lot of that time has been spent at court and chasing bad guys on current affairs shows. And let me tell you, I have one tip for you. Whether you are a dodgy tradie or you are a federal minister, do not run from the cameras. Do not treat the journalists with contempt, because all you do is make yourself look shadier and hand the journalists an even bigger story. That's the type of footage that we would use on television as promotional material, because it is more dramatic than just stopping and answering a simple question, which is what she could have done in reality. I mean, surely it's comms 101 not to do that.
You are spot on. That's the advice that most good staff would give their boss. Just front the camera, don't run away, don't look like you're in current affair. And you've just reiterated that. What about this allegation, James, that O'Neil reduced her departmental head to tears? And this is Stephanie Foster. She did the very transparent thing. She put out the detail, a table listing the crimes and the number of people committing those particular crimes out of the 149 released last year. Big feature of Question Time today, pushed very hard by Susan Lee, the Deputy Liberal leader. But again, this is not a good look if you're reducing public servants to a blubbering mess, is it?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, it's going to bring back, of course, memories of Clare O'Neil and Mean Girls sort of talk. But it's also, if you go back and you watch Question Time, I was in there, I was in the House watching every question that Susan Ley dropped on the minister over this. And she kept saying, I have answered this question, I've answered this question. But she never answered the question and said yes or no, whether or not she, in fact, did reduce the secretary to tears or an emotional state. And there was a very telling question that Susan Ley asked where she said, were there other public servants in the room, in the office with you when this occurred, which suggests to me that this is stitching up the idea that there were, in fact, other witnesses to this event. But no, it's a terrible look for the minister, and it's a terrible look also for a government that has talked about transparency. I mean, this document, these figures, the media was trying to get them for the longest time, and they said, oh, well, you know, that's not for us, that's for the state and territory police to deal with. We don't know, we wash our hands of it. They're not being transparent, and it's also, you know, not very good for the claims that they had about improving the culture of Parliament either, is it, Peta?
Not at all. Our good friends, Caroline, at the ABC RMIT Fact Check Unit, they've had to issue a grovelling apology to Dick Smith after they published a report on renewable energy that he claimed was full of lies. Smith spoke to Chris Kenny, of course, on Monday and said he was getting legal advice on the issue, which I think probably led to this apology. What did you think?
Well, it was extraordinary because they spent about a day trying to defend this fact check unit's report initially, and then they had this incredible back down, which, as you point out, probably had to do with a legal letter, and then posted a written apology online to Dick Smith. They basically accused him of saying that Australia should use nuclear energy and that he was bagging renewables. But he's pointed out he never did that. He never said that we shouldn't use renewable energy as part of the mix. He said we should simply look at adding nuclear to that mix. And it was clear that the fact check unit had taken him completely out of context and been utterly misleading on it, which they've apologised now for. But I don't need to tell you, Peta, about how woeful these fact check units have been, whether they are the RMIT one that the ABC relies on or the one that Meta or Facebook uses. With your own experience when you talked during the Voice campaign about the Uluru Statement from the Heart being more than that one page that the government and the Yes campaign was trying to push that it was. In reality, it was many more pages than that. And yet the fact check unit for Facebook tried to insist that this was somehow false information. I mean, time and again, we've seen how they lack any sort of integrity, and that they're really completely useless, because when it comes to fact checking, they're the ones that need to be fact checked.
Spot on. James and Caroline, have a lovely Easter. I'll catch up with you both on the other side of next week.